Guys, I'm giving away 3 iPhone 12 Pro Maxes on my Flight Mike TV channel. All you have to do is subscribe and turn on my notifications for the Flight Mike TV. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description down below. I'm giving away 3 of these bad boys. It's going to cost me like $6,000, so I want to give it away to someone that's been a day one supporter, turned on the notifications for my brand new gaming and reaction channel, Flight Mike TV. I wanted to make this additional consoles, guys, but it's been damn near impossible to get my hands on any more consoles, and we've done like 6 of them so far, so I wanted to mix it up, so I hope you guys can understand. Merch is also going offline tomorrow on theflightmike.com, and I'm going to be live streaming on twitch.tv/FlightMike consistently when next gen consoles come out. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, this video ties very close together with another video that I made, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And all of these stories are beginning to add up more and more. And the thing that really influenced me to make this video is the fact that Brian Windhorst actually commented on these rumors. Now, if you watch the Los Angeles Lakers play, you know that they're a fairly good team. They only have one problem. They need another guard. As a matter of fact, I think that's their biggest issue. They were fairly weak at the guard position, and if you even ask me, I feel like they got bailed out at the fact that they didn't have to play the Los Angeles Clippers, because the Los Angeles Clippers are pretty much the anti-Lakers, and they could have easily exposed the fact that they don't have a guard. But luckily for us Laker fans, the Los Angeles Clippers just didn't know how to play in the playoffs. They choked and blew a 3-1 series lead. And well, there was another report that came out by Brian Windhorst that has to do with the departing Los Angeles Lakers guard. So let's start with the piece of info that we know that's probably the most factual first. And that's the fact that Rajon Rondo is probably not going to be a Los Angeles Laker next year. And it's not that he didn't like being a Laker, just I don't think there's much else for him on the Lakers at this point. He's not going to rejoin on an underpaying contract to win another championship. He's already won a championship with the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers, and he's the only player in NBA history to accomplish such a feat. That makes the Los Angeles Lakers' need for a guard even more emphasized at the surface, because even when you did have Rajon Rondo, and as fantastic playoff Rondo was for the Los Angeles Lakers, I always felt like having him on the floor at the same time as LeBron James was kind of a contradiction. Both players ideally have the basketball in their hands in order to make plays for their teammates, and it really didn't make sense when both of them were on the court at the same time. As a matter of fact, ideally, you'd find a player that is a little bit better of a shooter so they could be a better complement to LeBron James. At the end of the day, the Lakers won a championship. Rajon Rondo filled his role, and I guess he's looking for a payday elsewhere because he's only got a couple years left before he's going to ride off into the sunset and retire from the NBA. Meanwhile, here's where the Lakers stand. If you remember 1 year ago, actually no, not even 1 year ago, I keep messing this up because I think free agency was a year ago, but I should really be saying last NBA free agency. So last NBA free agency in 2019, the Los Angeles Lakers were in a remarkable position, and I will never forget where I was when I heard this information. The Lakers gave up their young core of Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, and a couple of first-round picks, or several first-round picks, to acquire Anthony Davis. And at the time, I was very happy about this because we didn't give up Kyle Kuzma. The original offer was to give up Kyle Kuzma. At the conclusion of this deal being made, the Lakers were told, hey, guess what, buddies? You could also sign Kawhi Leonard.
What it do, baby? Yeah.
And Kawhi Leonard did this very shrewd thing where he took his time in telling the Lakers that he's going to sign with the Clippers. This way, the Los Angeles Lakers would miss out on several marquee free agents that they would have targeted in the beginning. And, well, of course, at the end of Kawhi Leonard's signing with the Los Angeles Clippers, they had some players that weren't really on the top of their list. I don't think the Lakers really wanted to come into this season with paying Danny Green $15 million per season. I don't think that was plan A. I felt like that was something concocted by Kawhi and Danny. Maybe they work together on it. I'm not really sure, because at the end of the day, Danny Green probably made out with like $8 more million than he should have made this year. Nothing against Danny, but I felt like that was his market value at the time. The takeaway I want you to get from that is they were trying to go for that third star shooting guard, and there isn't necessarily a shooting guard free agent that could really elevate them, but there are multiple star or above average shooting guards available for trade. And according to Brian Windhorst, the Los Angeles Lakers want to sign a guard onto their roster. Now, here's the problem with that. The best guards available in this year's free agency class are, not to say that they're extremely underwhelming, but the top guard available is Fred VanVleet. He's probably going to get overpaid by the Toronto Raptors or some other team. It's not necessarily a contract that the Lakers could really take on. It's not really a player that the Lakers would pursue. Then you have Michael Conley, who probably is going to opt into his player option because he's not going to get nowhere near that on the market if he doesn't do that. You have Goran Dragic, who is in his mid-30s, who probably is comfortable with the Miami Heat. I'm not saying it's completely out of the question for the Los Angeles Lakers to pursue Goran Dragic, but he's more of a bench player, not necessarily a star caliber starting guard. And after that, there's a huge drop-off in talent. You have players like Austin Rivers, DJ Augustine, Jeff Teague, and then the aforementioned Rajon Rondo. So the one issue with what Brian Windhorst said is the Lakers are trying to sign a guard, sign a star guard. And there isn't necessarily a star guard that the Los Angeles Lakers could sign. But there are 3 star guards or former star guards that are available for trade. And the first one I covered in a video about a couple of weeks ago, and it's probably the most popular rumor. And that would be the Los Angeles Lakers trading for Derrick Rose. And I've said this makes a ton of sense over and over again. You see, like, the Lakers have Kyle Kuzma. He's about to become a restricted free agent. They have to trade him because some team is going to overpay Kyle Kuzma this offseason. We all see it coming. It's not going to be the Los Angeles Lakers. They can't afford to overpay a player like Kyle Kuzma. They're not going to go over the luxury tax for a player like Kyle Kuzma. They know who Kyle Kuzma is. They know what he contributes to a championship team, and tanking teams also know what he contributes to below average to middle average teams. And that is, he could be the top scorer on a team that maybe makes it to the 8th or 9th seed on either conference, really depending on the team around him. So with that being said, it's in the Lakers' best interest to trade him. So I covered this a couple weeks ago. The Lakers would potentially trade Kyle Kuzma and receive Derrick Rose in return. Derrick Rose is on an expiring contract. He's on his last year of a 2-year, $15 million deal with the Detroit Pistons. He shot 50% from the field almost last year, averaging 18 points, 5.6 assists as well. He'd be the perfect player for the Los Angeles Lakers. He's not necessarily a star. He does have flashes to back to what he used to be. There are some issues because he did not have the greatest stint with Cleveland last time he tried playing with LeBron James, but this is a different circumstance. Those Cleveland Cavaliers were clearly a shell of their former selves without Kyrie Irving, so hopefully this will be a better situation for him. But that's not the only player that the Lakers could potentially trade for, and I'm going in order of most likely to least likely. And the second most likely player that the Lakers would trade for, in my opinion, would be Jrue Holiday. And the Lakers already have some history with the Pelicans. They traded with the Pelicans last offseason, brought in Anthony Davis. Jrue Holiday is going into his 11th season in the NBA, and this past season he put up 19 points, 5 rebounds, and almost 7 assists. He had a PER of 17 off of 46% shooting and 35% from 3. He's currently 30 years old, and he does have a player option at the conclusion of the 2021 to 2022 season. But the New Orleans Pelicans probably want to make the most out of his value and trade him for a younger player or for some assets. And that's where the problem lies. I don't think the Lakers have something to offer the Pelicans that would excite the Pelicans enough to move on from Jrue Holiday. If the Lakers could figure this out, or figure out a way to pull this off, I think this would even be more ideal than Derrick Rose. But that's another player that has been circling around in trade rumors that could potentially get traded to the Lakers. And the final player that could possibly get traded to the Lakers that I think there's absolutely no way this should happen. I am trying to stay away from this player as much as I can. He's the player that scares me the most this offseason, and that's Victor Oladipo. And the reason is he could screw you over from a variety of major ways. The first way is he could either be very good next year and leave you in free agency, or he could be horrible next year and the assets that you gave up for him could be absolutely not worth it at all whatsoever. And you have to understand that Victor Oladipo came back this season after a year of not playing. He didn't look that good. He only had like 10 to 12 games, I believe, but in those 10 to 12 games, he did not look good at all. And of course, he may have had to shake off some cobwebs. There's obviously a reason why he hasn't been that good, but it's kind of scary to trade for such a player. And I can imagine the Pacers demanding some assets in return for him. I would not be really too excited of giving up Kyle Kuzma or any of my other assets to acquire Oladipo, especially because he had the opportunity to team up with Russell Westbrook 3 years ago in Russell Westbrook's MVP season, and well, the results were fairly underwhelming. He did not perform as a good complement to Russell Westbrook. Then again, a lot of players don't perform as a good complement to Russell Westbrook, but these are some things I would bear in mind if I were to try to trade for Victor Oladipo. So in my opinion, I think the most likely player they trade for is Derrick Rose. And I do believe Brian Windhorst's report when he says this rumor. So I'm going to call a no cap on this, but let me know in the comment section down below. Do you believe the Lakers are going to make a big trade this offseason? Aside from that, I'm your boy, the Flight Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.